Hi guys, what's up? My name is David. Today we're going to be talking about the Canon EOS R5. Yep, EOS R5, a brand new camera announced by Canon Australia about 16 hours ago. And we are going to be talking about the slight specs that have been released, my thoughts on it, and see how it just kind of plays out. Before we get started, let me know in the comments below, what do you think the EOS R is going to have, the EOS R5? What do you think the specs are going to be? What do you hope for the specs to be other than the 8K, the 12 frames per second shooting, the in-body stabilization, and, the megapixels? What do you think is the specs of the EOS R? So let's start by reading the Instagram post by Canon Australia. The king is coming. While others have been making cameras for today, we've been focused on making cameras of the future. And now the EOS R5 is officially on its way. Boasting 8K movie, high-speed continuous shooting at 20 frames per second with electronic shutter and 12 frames per second with mechanical shutter, in-body stabilization, and dual card slots. We couldn't be more excited to welcome this beast to our mirrorless lineup. Follow the link in our bio to be the first to know when it drops. A lot of promising specs here, and I really hope that Canon can live up to it, because there's a lot of stuff that they're promising through this camera, and I really it should be amazing, but it's really hard to be able to fit all that into this tiny body. So I really hope to see them be able to work out this camera. I really hope that they're able to make it happen, because to be able to shoot 8K through this tiny body is already insane, because we have cameras out there like the S1H that already shoot 6K, but to be able to bump it up one step to just shooting 8K, it's completely skipping 6K, jumping from 4K in this body at 24 frames per second and jumping all the way up to 8K, that would be amazing. So I also have this article up by Engadget open right now. So it's talking about how the 8K is going to downsample to create a super crisp 4K, which is pretty good, because I've noticed that sometimes the 4K on this, especially when you're shooting in the 8-bit C-Log, is a little bit not up to par with, standards of 4K. And, that happens in a lot of cameras. The bit rates and the codecs aren't the best. I really hope that there's better 4K, and this one has digital stabilization, which is not the best stabilization in my mind, because the GH5 has in-body stabilization. A lot of cameras have in-body. So the difference between in-body and digital is that in-body is literally built into the camera, so all the movements are actually felt by that sensor, and the sensor moves and stabilizes itself with the camera movements. However, digital stabilization is something that happens digitally, and it doesn't actually move in the camera or anything. It just kind of finds the subject on your screen and kind of moves it the way it thinks it's moving. But if you use Premiere or Final Cut and use warp stabilization, you realize that you get some subspace warp, and it looks kind of weird, and it does that little wobble look, and it just kind of looks weird. Digital stabilization is definitely not as good as in-body stabilization, so just know that. So we're gonna get 20 frames per second shooting at silent shutter mode. Now, I really don't like using silent shutter mode, because I really like the sound of the clicks, like the crisp sound of the camera shutter, especially on the 1DX series. Those sound amazing. But silent shutter, mechanical shutter, they're not too big of different things, and it's really not that important. But if you try to shoot that faster speed, that silent shutter might actually help out a lot. And they said that this camera was to be tested during the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, so we might not be seeing any more updates or any release dates until after the Tokyo Olympics, when they've tested the camera, when they made sure everything worked and kind of shown that it works really well in specific high-speed situations that it needs to be used in, like the Olympics. So I'm not expecting for this camera to be released until probably summer. So the thing about this is, I feel like, depending on what memory cards it uses, because the dual card slots have been announced, but not what card they're going to be using. If this camera is going to be using CFast or CF Express, then I have high hopes for this camera. But if it's using cards like SD and CF, then I don't think it's going to work out as well as people want it to, because that 8K is going to need a lot of fast writing speeds. And if they're implementing 8K, I'm really hoping that they implement 4K 60 and anything in between, because the more resolutions you have, the more options that you're giving your customers, the more you're going to get sales, the more people are going to be hyped about the camera. Because yes, 8K is cool, but if you're giving me 8K 12 frames per second or something, then I'm not going to be as excited, because I'm never going to use that. If you give me 8K 24 but an SD card, then I'm gonna need to buy super powerful SD cards, and I can only like probably afford like one of those, and it's gonna be super hard for me to actually shoot that 8K. So I want it to be a shootable 8K with a camera that can handle it, and if it's gonna be doing all of that in just a tiny body, it's gonna have to have a good fans. So something like the S1H where the fan is like right under and it just kind of blows out simultaneously as it's recording those high frame rates, those high speeds, those high qualities. You know, it's just a lot to fit into a tiny body, and it's gonna have high expectations, because if you have like 8K video but you don't have 4K 60, then what's the point of even having that 8K, you know? Because we want that 4K 60 if you're gonna provide us 8K. We want that 120 FPS at 4K or 1080 if you're gonna give us that 8K, you know? So we don't want that 720p 120 FPS, you know? There's a lot of stuff that we're gonna have to, that a lot of customers want, that Canon's gonna have to lead into. But I have a lot of high hopes for this camera, because the way they're hyping it up, they literally skipped R2, R3, R4 and jumped straight to the R5. And you know, I think that this is definitely doable if Canon puts a lot of work into it, and I think they will, because if they're going to use it for the 2020 Olympics and kind of just wait that long to kind of just push it out, I think it's going to be a good one. High hopes for the EOS R5, and let's just see how it plays out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you aren't subscribed. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Have an amazing day, morning, night, and wherever you watch it from. I'll see you then. Peace. That was